All right, now continuing talking about learning, teaching, and technology. This video, we're going to look at learning, teaching, and pedagogy primarily. So what is teaching? Things you can think about when you're trying to identify what teaching is what's the difference between teaching and learning? What conditions support learning? What do you have to know to be a teacher? How is a teacher different from a friend or a parent? What do you think? We can think of teaching as giving information. That goes with that knowledge acquisition model of learning, where the teacher has knowledge that they're then giving to the student. Sometimes that's also called the banking approach to learning. We can also think of teaching as designing environments for learning, setting up the conditions that will allow the student to learn. In this way, the teacher has to let go of a little bit of control, but it provides more agency and exploration for the student. So an example of this is the Reggio Emilia schools that started in Italy. And they talk about the environment here as the third teacher. What the teachers do is they notice what students are interested in, what they're working on, and then every day they set up an environment with certain objects and tools and stuff that can encourage continued exploration with the students. So instead of giving them information, they're setting up conditions for them to learn. A way to think about teaching is design. And design is intentionally creating something for some purpose. So when I'm thinking of teaching as design, I might be setting up the classroom environment, like the posters, where the desks are, the layout. I might be setting up processes like, how do we take attendance? What do students do when they enter the room? How do they ask and answer questions? How do they turn in work? Those are things that teachers create in their classrooms. I can think of creating an experience with a lesson or an activity. So if you think about going to Disneyland, we have the experience of Disneyland with everything around us. How could you also design a lesson where it's that type of experience? I can design the role of the teacher. Maybe they're a guide. Maybe they ask a lot of questions. Maybe they act like a student. Maybe they act like someone who doesn't know anything. And then ultimately, this comes together to a type of classroom culture. Some classrooms are very positive and energetic. Others are more thoughtful and deliberate. Ultimately, whatever you do with these pieces lead to what your classroom culture is like, and that impacts the type of learning that happens there. So that's teaching as design. One more thing to mention is the word pedagogy. Pedagogy is the method and practice of teaching. So we think about how does learning happen, and we shift it to how do we encourage, foster, or support learning. So you might hear that word sometimes. It's just what kind of methods, what are we doing to support learning? So our next video will go more into technology.